Hello everyone, and once again I welcome you all at Nagesh Kharasgi Orchard School TV channel. And today we are going to study about the new lesson of the science, lesson number 5. That's name is Interdependence in nature. Students, as you know that our earth is made up of many things. For example, our earth consists of living things, non-living things, mountains, craters, lakes, oceans, rivers, then various variety of plants, animals, wild animals, domestic animals, forest, etc. But that all living things and non-living things are interdependent on each other. So, in this topic we are going to study about the interdependence between living things, non-living things, and all between also living things. That means between human beings and plants, between non-living things and plants and animals, etc. So, in this topic we have to learn about how living things depend on non-living things, then how plants and animals depends on each other, then food relationships. So, these three topics we have to discuss in this topic. So, first of all we will see about how living things depend on living things. So, as you told that as I told you that, and as you know that there are many things and non-living things around you. For example, plants, animals, birds are living things, and non-living things like air, water, soil, sunlight, different types of rocks, etc. are examples of non-living things. Apart from that, there are various types of non-living things also, and all living things depend on both living and non-living things. That means, all living things need water, soil, air, etc. Then plants also need plants also depend on animal also depend on plant. In this way they are depending on each other, and all living things depend on both living and non-living things in many ways to survive. For example, animals need oxygen, which we get from the air to breathe, and water to drink, and plants need carbon dioxide, water and sunlight to prepare food. Then animals and birds depend on plants for food and shelter. Then many plants depend upon animals for pollination and dispersal of their seeds. So, in this way, or that is why we say that there is interdependence in nature. In this way, so we can say that there is a interdependence between the in the nature. So, now we will see how living things depend on non-living things in detail. Students, as we all know that we need air. Why we need air, or why air is essential for living things? Because air contains many gases. For example, air contains oxygen, air contains carbon dioxide, nitrogen, ozone gas, etc. Out of this, we need oxygen for breathing, and plants need carbon dioxide in the process of making food. So, plants and animals need oxygen, and they use oxygen to get energy from food during the process of respiration. In the process of respiration, animal takes oxygen, which is present in the air. That is why we cannot stay alive for long without air. That means, air is essential for all living things for breathing, and without of respiration we are unable to live. And during respiration, plants and animals breathe in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide. At the same time, when we take oxygen, at the same time we exhale or give out the carbon dioxide, and that is used by the plants. That means, plants use carbon dioxide taken from the atmosphere to make their food during the process of photosynthesis. As we know that what is meant by photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is the process of making food in plant with the help of carbon dioxide, sunlight, water, etc. that we know about that. So, plants use carbon dioxide which they take from the atmosphere to make their food during the process of photosynthesis. And during photosynthesis what happens? They take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen. During the process of photosynthesis they take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen, and this oxygen is again used by plants and animals for respiration. As I told you sometime before that oxygen is needed for all living things, all animals, and in the process of photosynthesis plants release the oxygen, and this oxygen is again used by plants and animals for respiration. So, in this way both plants and animals require air to live. Now, we will see how it depends on water or how water is essential. Students, as we know that like an air, water is also essential to all plants and animals for carrying out their life processes. Animals need or human beings need water for drinking, cooking, bathing, washing, or so many purposes. That means, without of water also our life is not possible. So, every living thing on the earth need water. In the same way, plants absorb minerals which is dissolved in water through their roots. Plants need minerals, plants need nutrients, and they take that or they absorb the minerals which is dissolved in the water through their roots. And plants also use water to prepare food during photosynthesis. As we know that in the process of photosynthesis plants require water also, and that they use. And water also helps in dispersal of seeds, as we learn about the dispersals of seed and the dispersals of seeds of plants which are growing in or near water. For example, lotus plant, coconut plant, or the seeds of lotus and seeds of coconut float on water and get scattered from one place to another. So, in this way water also help in dispersal of seeds of plants which is growing in or near water. And several life processes in the bodies of animals require water. Several life processes in the bodies means, for example, water is required to carry food to all parts of the body. Suppose if we eat something, then that food did not carry food or give energy to all parts of the body. So, for providing or carrying food to all parts of the body, water is essential. And water also absorb nutrients in the food, as we know that food contains various nutrients, for example, carbon dioxide, proteins, minerals, vitamins, that all are also absorbed by the water. So, water helps in absorbing nutrients in the food, water helps in maintaining temperature level, and as we know that water is also essential for collecting waste from all over the body. As we know, all food is not getting digested by our body. So, that undigested food or the waste from all over the body are removing it from the body in the form of urine. That means, in that process also water is useful. So, in this way water is useful for all living things. Then we also know that all living things, plants, animals need soil, and as we know that plants cannot grow if there is no soil, because soil provides plants with support. Plants get water and minerals from the soil which is needed for them to making food, and plants also get nutrients from the food. as we know that all the nutrients are in the soil, and that all the nutrients and minerals plants get all that minerals and nutrients with the help of their roots. So, for giving nutrients, for giving minerals, soil is also useful for plants. And sometimes soil provides shelter to animals such as centipedes and earthworm, etc. And some animals like rabbits, rats, moles and many other animals live in burrows in a soil. If you have book in front of you, you can see the picture on page number 49 that owl is burrowing in the soil. So, animals like centipedes, earthworm, etc. get shelter in the soil, and animals like rabbits, rats, moles and many other animals live in burrows in the soil. And since all animals depend on plants for food and they indirectly depend on soil for food, and plant depend on soil to get nutrients, when animal and plants die, their bodies decay and mix with soil. After decaying, after dying of animals, what happens? Their bodies started to decaying in the soil, and afterwards that getting mixed with the soil, and that adds humus to soil. As we know that humus is very essential for the growth of plant, and that humus is also getting added by the bodies, by the decaying bodies of the animals. And when animals and plants die, their bodies get decaying and mix with soil, and this adds humus to soil, which makes it fertile for plants growth. So, in this way soil is also essential, or we depend on soil, plants also depend on soil, animals also depends on soil. Then afterwards sunlight. As we know that plants need energy to make food, plants need energy to make food, and plants use energy trapped from sunlight to make food during the process of photosynthesis. For example, or in the process of photosynthesis, when plant makes their food, they require energy. For making their food, plants need energy, and that energy they get from the sunlight, or means plants use energy which is trapped from sunlight to make food during the process of photosynthesis. And plants needs also, seeds also needs warmth for their germination. As we know that germination process, for the germination seeds need good quality of seeds, soil as well as water and warmth, and that all warmth they get from the sunlight. So, sunlight provides warmth for the seeds to germinate, and animals also need the warmth of sunlight for survival. For example, animals which is living in the cold region or in the snowy region, they require energy or they require heat to maintain the temperature in their body. So, animals which live in the cold region or in the snowy region need the warmth of sunlight for their survival. So, in this way plants or all living things depend on non-living things. That means, living things need air, water, soil and sunlight. Now, in the next point we have to see about how plants and animals depends on each other. So, as we know that animals depend on plants for food, animals depend on plants for shelter, animals depend on plants for oxygen, plants use carbon dioxide produced by animals, then plants depends on animals for reproduction, then living things make the soil fertile. So, first of all we will see how animals depend on plants for food. Students, plants and animals are different from each other, as we know that their living processes, all the processes in plants and animals are different. Body structure, body parts, other characteristics are different in plants and animals, but they also need each other, and neither plants or no any of the animals can survive without of the other. That means, plants and animals depend on each other. So, first of all we will see how animals depend on plants for food. As we all know that every living things need food to stay alive, and we also know that plants provide most of the food to all living things. That means, food is the main source of food, and all animals depend directly or indirectly on plants for food. As we all know that animals need food, animals eat fruits, vegetables, grains, or all other things, all that things they get from the plants. So, herbivorous animals such as cows, goats, giraffe, deer, etc. eat plants, and thus they are depending directly on plants for food. That means, they eat only plant product, that is why they are called as herbivorous. So, animals which depends directly on food are called as herbivorous, and herbivorous animals such as cows, goats or giraffes eat plants, and thus they are depending directly on plants for food. And other animals, as we know that apart from herbivorous animals, some animals eat only meat or flesh of other animals. Example, carnivorous animals such as tigers, lions, wolves eat other animals, and so eat other animals means they eat herbivorous animals such as cows, goats, giraffes, which eat plants. So, carnivorous animals indirectly depend on plants for food. How? Herbivorous animals eat plants product, and carnivorous animals eat that herbivorous animals. That means, herbivorous animals depend directly on plant for food, but carnivorous animals indirectly depend on plant for food. So, in this way animals depend on plants for food either directly or indirectly. Then animals depend on plants for shelter. Students, as we know that all animals need shelter to protect themselves from heat, from cold, from rain, from their enemies, etc. But human beings can build their houses, as we know that among all living things, human beings and some of the birds and some of the animals can build their houses. But a number of animals such as birds, squirrels, monkeys, insects, etc. find shelter on trees. As we always know that squirrels, monkeys and some of the animals like insects lives on the trees. They make their house or they make their shelter on the branches of the trees, or they live in the on the branches. Birds also make their nest, birds build nest on trees, while squirrels, monkeys and insects live on the branches of the tree. So, in this way animals depend on plants for shelter. Animals depend on plants for shelter. Now, we will see how animals depend on plants for oxygen. Students, as we know that oxygen is very essential for living things, and which we get from the plants. Actually, oxygen is dissolved in the air, but that oxygen in the air is getting from the plant only. That means, plants gives oxygen. So, plants make food in the presence of sunlight. When plants make food in the presence of sunlight, carbon dioxide and water, they give out oxygen during this process. And animals like human beings, birds, other animals take in these oxygens during the process of respirations, and plants also take in a small amount of oxygen during respiration, but all that oxygen we get only from the plant. That means, animals depend on plants for oxygen. Then, like oxygen, carbon dioxide is also useful for the plants. So, plants use carbon dioxide which is produced by animals or which is dissolved in the air. See how, students, as we know that plants need carbon dioxide to make food, and we know that animals release carbon dioxide during the process of respiration. So, during respiration animals take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide is used by plants during the process of photosynthesis. If you have page number 15 in front of you in your book, then you can see the picture there, how plants and animals, how plants use carbon dioxide produced by animals. So, in this way plants use carbon dioxide which is produced by animals. Then plants depends on animals for reproduction. As we know that reproduction is the characteristic in all living things, and we learn about that also. So, animals such as butterflies, honeybees, etc. help plants to produce by pollinating flowers. How they help? Animals such as butterflies, honeybees, etc. help plants to reproduce by pollinating flowers, and many varieties of plants grow over a large area because of birds and animals eat their fleshy fruit and scatter their seeds. Scatter means spread in many direction. As we learn that in the dispersal, in the point of dispersal of seed topic plant life, how animals helpful in the scattering of the food, how animals helpful in the dispersal of seeds. And as we also know that some of the seeds are getting stuck on the bodies of animals such as sheep, goats, etc., and help in the scattering of seeds. So, plants depend on animals for reproduction. How? Plants, seeds of plants get carried over through their bodies, through their skin, etc., and animals helps the plants to scattering of their seeds. So, in this way plants depends on animals for reproduction. Then living things make the soil fertile. How living things make the soil fertile, and how fertile soil is useful for animals. As we know that animals that live in the soil help to loosen it, and air required by the roots of plants can then enter the loosened soil. Thus, animals like earthworm or any small worms make the soil fertile, and in the same way bacteria and fungi help to decay waste and dead living things, and this causes the nutrients in their bodies to mix with soil and making it fertile. So, in this way all plants and animals depend on each other. So, in the last point of the topic we have to study about the food relationship. Food relationship. If you have book in front of you, you can open page number 52. There you can see the food cycle or the food relationship in nature through the picture. So, see what is meant by interdependence or food relationship. As we know that the interdependence between plants and animals can be clearly seen by observing how food passes from one living to another. Interdependence between plants and animals can be clearly seen by observing how food passes from one living thing to other. As we all know that each and every living things depend on other for their food, but all the living things directly or indirectly depend on the plants for the food, and that cycle is continuous. That means, first of all, plant is the producer. Some animals like herbivores eat that plants, then carnivorous animals depend on the herbivorous animals. Then herbivores, when carnivorous animals die, their body get decays, and that decaying body is used by some insects, some worms or bacteria. Then again that bacteria gives or provide nutrients to the plants. In this way that cycle goes continuous. So that is called as the food chain. So what is mean by a food chain? A series of living things showing which one eats which is called a food chain. What is mean by a food chain? A series of living things showing which one eats which is called a food chain. And always remember that food chain always start with the plants. Why? Because as we know that plants is the most important source of food, and all the animals directly or indirectly depend on plants for their food. So food chain always start with plants which are producers of food. So they are called as producers of food. Plants are called as producers of food. Then afterwards they are eaten by herbivores. Then they are eaten by herbivorous animals like cow, deers, goat, buffaloes, sheep, etc. So which are primary consumers? That animals are called as primary consumers. Primary consumers means when plants produce food, first of all herbivorous animals eat that food. So they are called as primary consumers. Then the carnivores indirectly utilize the food made by plants when they eat the herbivores, and they are secondary consumers. That means when herbivorous animals eat the food from the plants, then afterwards carnivorous animals eat that herbivorous animals. So indirectly they utilize the food which is made by the plants, and so they are called as the secondary consumers. Then afterwards bacteria and fungi are known as decomposers. Why? Eventually all plants and animals die after some time. As we know that there is a particular lifespan for all animals and all living things. After some time or after some period, all animals, all plants will die. So eventually all plants and animals die, and bacteria and fungi feed on the dead bodies. So they break down the dead body into simple substances which can again be used by plants. So bacteria and fungi are known as decomposers. Bacteria and fungi are known as decomposer. So with this point of the lesson we complete with the lesson number 5th here. But before that I will show here one picture of food chain. If you have textbook in front of you, you can see that picture also. Food relationship in nature. Here you can see plants which are the producers or the main source of food. Then plants are eaten by the primary consumers like herbivorous animals, example deer, cow, buffalo, sheep, etc. Then that primary consumers or that herbivorous animals are eaten by secondary consumers, means carnivorous animals like lion, tiger, etc. Then when that secondary consumers dead or die, what happens? They start to decay or decompose. Then after that decompose, they provide nutrients to plants, and that nutrients are used by plants for their growth. So this cycle continuous, keep continuous in the nature, and in this way food relationship is also continuous. So this is the food relationship in nature. So here with this point of the lesson we complete with the lesson number 5th in the science. If you have any doubt regarding lesson number 5, you are free to ask in our doubt solving session. Till that we will meet soon in our next session with lesson number 6. Till that you have to read the topic properly, try to find out hard words and important point. Thank you.